but I am Palestinian in origin. And today, when we would like to discuss, and I will apologize to my friend and colleague Javier, because I cannot talk about public awareness without giving you a brief synopsis of what is going on. But you will hear the details from Javier, who is on the ground, and I know him personally, and I know of his achievements at the NSU with, God rest his soul, Saib Ariqat. And I just want to remind Javier that I was in charge of the Jerusalem file when we went to Camp David. So I am a controversial figure. Sometimes I say things that even my leadership doesn't like. But because we are all committed to Palestine, we try to have the liberty of criticizing, because that's the way our PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, operates. If you ask me now one question, which was asked to me by Sir David Frost in an interview several years ago before he passed away in London. He said, Mr. Ambassador, 6 months ago, you came to this program, Frost Over the World, with the Israeli ambassador, who is currently I think the United Nations, and now I don't know where he is. His name was Ron Prozor. So we had a debate in the studio, the address in One Knightsbridge in London, about, what's going on in Gaza, the West Bank, and the Israeli occupation. So he told me, I don't want to say who won the debate, and started grinning to me, smiling, that you clobbered this guy. Now he said, I will ask you a question 6 months later. What is the political situation today? And I answered him, please listen to me exactly what I gave him one sentence. I said, today Palestinians and Israelis are stuck between the historically inevitable and the politically impossible. He was baffled. He said, can you say it again? So I said it again. And he said, ladies and gentlemen, between two nationalities, but between two epistemic communities that basically are striving to attain independence, us the Palestinians, and Israelis at our expense, they want to have the entire Palestinian territories. Not only the 78%, which we regret that we gave on a golden platter during the Oslo agreement, they wanted 22%. Now, there is no difference between Labour, Likud, and what have you. For us, they are all Zionists. It's what we call in English, when you say, what is the difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican? I say, tweedledum, tweedledee. There is no difference in policies. There is no difference in attitude. They are Zionists, and they want to justify their presence along biblical prophecies. So this messianic dream that they have, that this is Eretz Israel, is ludicrous. I don't need to prove that there is no traces of Judaism in Palestine. No. I tell you what, today professors of history and archaeology, Jewish, are saying we have nothing in Palestine. Show me one thing in Jerusalem that they have. Nothing. This is, what do you call what they call the Kotel, which is the Wailing Wall. This is Hayy al-Magharbi. This is not their Kotel where they weep and during Easter for them, whatever, Pesach. They have nothing to do with Palestine. Now, it is a shame that previous colonial settler movements in the world, and I used to teach in the American universities a course on American history. And of course, I went into details to find the discrepancies between American society, which claims to be the melting pot. It is one of the racist countries in the world. The same thing if you go to Australia. You see, the Americans have uprooted the Red Indians. They made them live in ghettos, and they took their land. The same thing the Australians. The convicts of British citizens came to Australia and confiscated the land of the Aborigines. The same thing goes to Canada and other countries, let alone South Africa. So the Israelis think, the Zionists think, if it worked in America, in Australia, and why shouldn't it work in Palestine? So this is the frame of historic reference, where the Zionists have always thought that they can build their project. But listen to me carefully. What I'm trying to say is that 20 years down the pipeline, I don't think the Palestinians will be disunited as today. 20 years down the pipeline, I don't see the United States will be the leading polar power in the United States to put political diktats on the region and what is happening there in the Middle East. I don't think Israel would succeed in a melting pot society like what Americans claim and Australians and Canadians. 20 years down the pipeline, Israel would realize that this is a country that is not based on true history. This is a country that came to colonize, and eventually they will be kicked from our country because they know history is with the people who fight for freedom and independence. Now, we have seen Labour, Likud coming, all these governments continued in their settlement project. There is no difference. All of them are Zionists. So don't be convinced that if a Likud government comes or leaves or a Labour government comes, they have the same project. And I tell you what, the first projects of settlement started immediately after 1967 by the Labour government. It was not by Likud. Likud came in 1977. So imagine 10 years, they started building settlements, and settlements grow like cancerous with their creeping annexation. Eventually today, Javier could tell me more than 140 settlements do we have, or more even?
Almost 400 if you count settlement outposts.
With the outposts, yeah. Now, we're talking about almost 700,000 settlers living in Jerusalem, the entourage of Jerusalem settlements and that of the West Bank. And most of their settlements are in the area, what they call Area C. We were so stupid to accept this Oslo agreement and try, basically, to accept the definition of the topography and the geography of Palestine to areas A, B, and C. Area C is almost 61%, and all the settlements, basically, the basic ones are in Area C, where Area C is considered to be our nerve for agriculture, for economic development, for urbanization, whatever. It's all under Israeli control. Let alone our cities, the 6 major cities, are, open, basically, for hot pursuit by the Israelis. They come and take the kids from their homes in the middle of the night, terrorizing them, and take them and put them incarcerated for nothing. So Israel still controls the entire Palestinian territories, the so-called 1967 borders, and they are, with impunity, using collective violence against the Palestinians. Now, what is happening in Israel today, any act of defiance will be received with capital punishment. Show me a democracy in the world that practices capital punishment. In certain cases. So is this the bastion of democracy that is based on racism, that is based on allowing Palestinians to certain roads and not their bypass roads? In crossing the checkpoints without a pass. If you remember the word pass en français, when South Africa used the pass for the black people to cross checkpoints, they're using exactly the same methods. And then we crave to see Israel blooming and with its democracy and institutions and whatever. Ladies and gentlemen, democracy in Israel is a fallacy. There is no democracy. And God, the real estate agent, is now showing the true character of Israel. Now they're shifting into authoritarianism. Huh? It's within the Israeli society, there is also discrimination between the Sephardi Jew, the Ashkenazi Jew, the Falasha, and those, what we call those who were born in Palestine, the Sabra Jews. There is no equality in Israel. This is a fake concept that Israel is using to save its image that it is the only democracy in the Middle East. And, of course, don't be shocked in what I'm going to say. Why should we, the Palestinians, pay the sense of guilt of Europe in Auschwitz, Treblinka, in Nazi Germany, and us pay something that we were not committed to do? That's why Britain and Europe wanted to save and wanted to compensate the Jews by giving them a national home in Palestine. Who is this stupid A.G. Balfour? And what authority A.G. Balfour has to give a land to a people without a land? And this is how immigration, of Jewish immigration, started in Palestine. As soon as the civil administration of Britain came into existence, Jewish immigration started coming to Palestine. And they kept on coming with waves and waves. And they started, creating havoc among the Palestinians during the Wailing Wall incident of 1929, the 1936 revolt, the 1942, and one massacre after the other, terrorizing the Palestinians from their land, forcefully deporting them during the 1948 war, by massacring villages like Kufr Qasim, Deir Yassin, and what have you. And they continued with the same mentality today. The settlers, supported by the Israeli offensive forces, don't say defensive, offensive forces, controlling the situation and standing by watching how the settlers killing at point blank kids 13, 14 years old, women, and what have you. So this is the ugly, repugnant situation in Palestine. Since the advent of this government, and if you want to tell me that Israel is a democracy, Israel is not a democracy, because the Israeli people elected these people to come to government. And if we have supporters in Israel, they are only a minority. The majority is a right-wing fascist to support the settlers in their acts of hoodlums against the Palestinians is something that is reflective of this society. How could we say that the Israelis want peace? Israel was never interested in peace, my dear. They were interested in the geography and not the demography of Palestine. And if you look at the systematic policies today of killing every day, burning houses, and I leave the rest to my friend Javier to tell you exactly what takes for a Palestinian to live every day under occupation. I'll leave that to him. But if you look at the situation in general, this is a systematic policy of decimation of an entire nation. This is genocide, not on a massive scale, but on a personal level. Every day, killing 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And the saga is continuing on and on and on and on and on. And we have seen nothing from the international community except sympathy and moral empathy. But what are we doing to stop the carnage of killing in Palestine? Nothing. And every time I go to your foreign office and I meet your foreign minister and what have you, I ask him, when I came to Denmark, I was under the impression that I am here in a la-la land. And I thought my government have sent me here because, I'm getting close to retirement, so let him have fun in Denmark. To my surprise, when I came here, it didn't take me 2 days to figure out the foreign policy and the structure of government here. And I met with 2 foreign ministers, and I told them, you know, I respect the Danish people for the support for human rights, for equality, for helping others. But I don't support your government, because your government is totally subservient to the policies of the United States and Israel. And I said that on DR2, and I attacked your Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, and I said, you know, it's a shame you're going to Israel to get the inoculations of the COVID to bring to Denmark while the Palestinians are dying. Under international law, the occupier is supposed to give us those vaccines. Okay. So there is a discrepancy between the government and the people. And we always make sure, Palestinians, to make that difference. Because we cannot say Denmark as people not supporting Palestine. No. Denmark supports the Palestinian people. And I can tell you so many projects for Dan Church Aid, for Bethlehem Association, whatever. We have many organizations that work in Palestine, and they help in the substructure, in building, you know, our institutions and what have you. So we thank you for that, okay? But in reality, we don't want charity. We want your support to have our political independence. We don't need charity money, okay? So this is very important. We want your support, and your support is coming from the people and not from your government. So what is a pittance when you tell me we gave 90 million kroners to United Nations UNRWA? So what's the big deal? You're trying to play the part of the European Union. And every time I tell you, look, give us one statement from the office. I wrote, Ziad, tell me how many note-verbals I've written since I came here. And how many meetings did I have with the Foreign Office discussing the present day occupation and what is happening on the ground. Every time I go there, they are tongue-tied, my friend. They say, we cannot answer you. You are a professor. I said, what? I'm not a professor. Put my academic achievements, put my titles. I am here trying to raise awareness of the Danish people about what's going on in Palestine. And it's about time that people here, I cannot change the Danish government. Regardless, I've written 9 articles here since I came in your major newspapers, in Politicon, Berlinski, and what have you. This is part of my campaign for raising awareness. But the change should come from you through members of parliament, through your political parties. That entity will make the change in the Danish government. But you know, I reached a point of no return. It's a stalemate for me. I'm blocked like cement that there is no independent Danish foreign policy. I reached this conviction after a long process of studying, you know, the Danish society and the government policies and what have you, that it is so difficult to change the state of mind and the psyche of a government that totally is subservient to the United States diktat policies, let alone the all these what we call institutions that are, you know, extreme right-wingers here in Denmark. We are here not to defend or kill the Jews, because we make a distinction between Judaism as an Abrahamic religion and Zionism. There's a big difference. Judaism is the first religion. Christianity is the second, Islam is the third. So there is a coherence, synchronization between all religions in their attitude towards the Unitarianism of God. We make the distinction between Zionists who came to rape Palestine and those Jews who want to live in harmony with the Palestinians. Now, there are voices all over the world that are anti-Israel, Jewish voices in America and Europe and what have you. And they are not happy with the extreme now Jewish, I would say Israeli government, the settlers government, because it showed now, it portrayed very explicitly the real intentions of the state of Israel. And this is actually, everybody is seeing it in the press. And as I said, they are dissatisfied with what they see, but they don't have the mechanisms of how to control and to deter that onslaught of these settlers against the innocent Palestinians. Are we still living in a mentality of apartheid in the 21st century? Why apartheid ended all over the world except in Palestine? Why? Are they the chosen people? And if you believe in the chosen people, I will tell you, you are naive. I don't think God makes distinction between people. Why should they have the privilege of claiming themselves to be the chosen people? To justify what? To justify rampage, killing, carnage, genocide, and uprooting people from their ancestral lands? Can I tell you how many thousands of orange orchards, trees, olive trees, have been uprooted? How can they accept the fact that they want a two-state solution, which is a gimmick? There is no two-state solution. It's over. This is dead. We should think outside the box to see what we can achieve if peace will ever reign supreme in the Middle East. But I have my doubts. We are back into what we call in political science a zero-sum conflict. Their gains are our losses. There is no thinking outside the box, and there is no searching for common ground. The chapter of Oslo in our history has been aborted not by the Palestinians, but by the Israelis. And they still talk about Oslo and two-state solution. And they still, try to bribe us on security arrangements and what have you with them. But today there is no security arrangement, as far as I know, and as far as I was instructed by my authority in Ramallah. Security arrangements for what? To protect the settlers from killing Palestinians? You talk about security arrangements when you have decent negotiations tete-a-tete. When we look into the same eye, not political diktat as it was in Oslo. And I was a sharp critic of Oslo when it came out. I said, I don't want to talk about the legitimization eventually of settlements, which I came to be right, and let alone who would accept the Paris Protocol, my friend, where economically we are totally under the wings of Israel. You know that we are the second largest country in the world after the United States in importing goods from Israel. 97% of our actual food and basic necessities come from Israel. And look at the difference in terms of per capita income, 1 to 30. So we are totally controlled, and we live, let alone, I'm not talking about Gaza yet, huh? It's a big open air concentration camp. Embargo, boycott, name it. Israel has been using its new technology of weapons on the Palestinians to market it to Azerbaijan, to market it to regional conflicts, whatever, in Africa and what have you. Israel is not a democracy. They have the same mentality of the, what I call, and quoting C. Wright Mills in his book, The Power Elite, they are part of the world military-industrial complex, which means that they grow and they mushroom on selling arms. This is Israel. Look, they control FaceTime, they control Facebook, they control Twitter, Instagram. I know the names, but I'm not that familiar with the technology, you know. I'm an old guard, a traditional. But I know that they control everything. Imagine my driver, when he criticizes the settlers on Facebook about killing Palestinians, they close his account. Where is the democracy? This is total control. This is authoritarianism par excellence, as we say. You cannot avoid being blind to these issues. We have to open our mind. I always say, you make concessions when you are at the crescendo of power. And I must give it to Israel. Israel today as the crescendo of its power. With the unequivocal support of the United States, let alone Europe. This is the time when Israel has to think, not tactically, but strategically. That 30 years down the pipeline, read my lips, Israel is not going to exist. Israel is not going to exist. And for the reasons that I mentioned earlier. So if I were a consultant, if we take Mr. Rasmussen, tell him, we give you an advice. Tell Israel this is the time to make those painful concessions. For me, it was painful to give 78% of Palestine. It was painful. But for them, what is painful? They came from outside, took my country. What is painful? They're giving back what they have taken by force. If they want to be accepted legitimately in the Middle East, and sorry for all these Arab countries that have been normalizing with Israel, they will pay the price eventually for what they have done, and they have seen and reaped the benefits of such policies with Israel. The Americans, I always tell my Israeli friends, I tell you, don't understand the WASP mentality in America. The white Anglo-Saxon Protestants who believe only in their national interest. Today, Israel is a good commodity for them to be the police in the Middle East. But I tell you what, when you strategically are finished in the Middle East, you will be shunned like every other coopérant, as we say in French, with the Americans. Look what they did with Osama bin Laden. Who created Osama bin Laden? Who created Hamas in our part of the world? Who created Noriega? Americans, the CIA. And eventually, when your duties are over, you are either discarded, killed, or imprisoned. That's the objective and strategy of such an imperialistic power like the United States. You know, I have the right to criticize the Americans because I have American citizenship. So by law, by the Second Amendment of the US Constitution, I have the right to criticize our government. And our government in the United States cares nothing about human lives all over the world. They only want to market their military industry. And you know, almost 65% of the GNP of the United States of America comes from the selling of arms. Is this a democracy? If that's the democracy, I don't want really, I'd rather go to shurocracy, go to Islam and believe in the shura, which is consultation. But I don't want this democracy which is hypocritical. So don't preach us. You took the question of justice, consultation, and whatever, it's all from Islam. I'm Christian Catholic, but I'm proud to have the Islamic culture because I was born and raised in an Islamic culture that is tolerant to all religions. Now there are some fanatics here and there, but you don't blame Islam. You blame those who use Islam as a facade for their own ulterior motives. Please make the distinctions between Muslims and Islam. And I'm not here to preach you. I'm just trying to raise public awareness and to tell the Danish people, we hail you for your stance. And we don't forget how you helped the Jews escape the atrocities in Germany. Who accepts the killing of innocent people? Who can feel with the Jews more than me, a Palestinian who is suffering under occupation, and an Armenian where the Ottomans massacred 1.5 million in the first genocide history in 1915. Who can be more sympathetic than a person who seeks peace but who is reaching a point of discouragement that there will never be peace with such Zionist entity that is called Israel? Peace is an illusion. Peace is not making war. What we see is war and not peace in our part of the world. As I said, it is becoming a zero-sum conflict as it was pre-Oslo. No dramatic change in policies, and the saga continues, and nobody pays any heeds, and there will be a time, how many years, 10, they will take over all the rest of the occupied territories. And now, they are thinking about first reading of annexing the West Bank. And then we talk about two-state solution. And every time I go and meet your officials, they say, no, we are for two-state solution. We are against settlements. We are this. I said, can you, don't tell me, come up with a public statement from the Foreign Office saying exactly what you're saying me to your public. Not a single statement. And it's not because I'm in Denmark, I'm criticizing Denmark, but this is the situation in all Europe. And every country that supports Palestine, they try to put economic sanctions and not allow them to transfer any money to the Palestinian people. Now the irony of the matter is, Israelis collect our tax revenues. And our tax revenues that were supposed to come to the Palestinian Authority, to the Finance Ministry, for distribution and for basically paying for infrastructural development, salaries and what have you, are under totally controlled Israeli authority. Now I don't know what is the amount, but I know it's like 200, 300 million shekels or something, that 400 million shekels that they owe the Palestinian Authority. Now we, embassies all across, thousands of employees in Gaza and the West Bank, are getting 70% of their salaries. And sometimes we have to wait 2 months, 3 months to get the salary. Why? Because the tax revenues, our money, is withheld by the Israelis. It's like, dealing with a child. When he misbehaves, they don't give him lollipop. When he behaves, they give him lollipop. And this is exactly what they are doing with the Palestinians. This is our money. Israel never spent a penny while they were occupying the Palestinians. Sometimes we are attacked as we are helping occupation in sustaining it. And what Europe is doing is sustaining the occupation by giving us charity money. We don't want that money. We need political independence. We need our country, and we will show you the lucrative, entrepreneurial ingenuity of the Palestinians in building their economies. Listen, half of the Arab countries, Palestinians have built them. Education, construction, everything came from the Palestinians in the Arab world. Kuwait does not deny that. They come and say, you taught us, you built our country, and this and this and that. Why can't we build our country? Why can't we have our own independence? And tourism is our petrol. Now, let me just switch a little bit and I will finish and take questions. To show you to what extent Israel is a racist country, and I'm going to give you anecdotes. Our churches in Palestine are under constant attack. And let me just cite one example. I'm Armenian, and we have St. James Convent on the way to the Kotel. Every time they pass, they spit on the cross, they beat our priests, they humiliate them, they beat them up. This is an ongoing, as you say in French, la vie quotidienne. Every day we have this. When we have our celebrations of Christmas, when we have our celebration of Pâques in the Holy Sepulchre, Israeli and they control the church. They don't even allow our faithful to go and pray. Now settlers are trying to get control of historic monumental buildings in Jerusalem. The Imperial Hotel, the Petra Hotel, and God knows how many. By the same token, every day we have desecration of our holy sanctuaries in Al-Haram, Al-Aqsa, and what have you. So there is also a religious discrimination. It's not only civil or national or what have you. No. There is this discrimination that encompasses all facts and walks of life in the occupied territories. Now, as I said, we are not against Judaism, but we are against settlers. We are against Zionists. We are against this project, the dream of conquering Palestine through creeping annexation. We are against that. And that's why we will continue to struggle. And our struggle is peaceful. We don't want to kill Israelis, but we have to defend ourselves, ladies and gentlemen. We have to defend ourselves. We don't want to kill, but we are not going to accept being killed by settlers. With their M16s, with their Smith-Wesson guns, and with Glock and what have you. And let me conclude by saying this. It is a shame that we live in the age of what is so-called liberal democracy in the world, to see that you are tolerant, the Europeans and the Americans, to an occupation that has been a disgrace to humanity, and to continue in supporting Israel as the bastion of democracy. It is a shame to put the victim and the victimizer on equal footing when it comes to your policies. There is an occupier and there is an occupied. And we are the occupied. It is about time that we have to raise the consciousness. And just in one sentence, to tell you that I have been doing a lot of public awareness in Denmark. And every time I went to a university or to organizations or to churches, I got nothing but applause and support and more enthusiasm of going to visit Palestine and see with their own eyes how every Palestinian is carrying their cross and walking through the Via Dolorosa in East Jerusalem, where I come from. My house is on the Via Dolorosa. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, we will have 10 minutes now, and then later on the ambassador will stay here, so there will be an open discussion at the end of the afternoon. But come on, yes, please. Yeah, Peter.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Interesting speech and necessary speech. You said that the Oslo agreement, you didn't agree with it, and later on you said that it was a failure. But my question is it not still accepted by the political parties, and isn't the Oslo agreement the agreement that is controlling, so to speak, the negotiations or the diplomatic discussions around the situation? So how to avoid, I mean, you can disagree with it, but don't you have to accept it as a point of no return? Or is it possible to set up a new political framework that is not perhaps filled with that mistake? And I don't know if you would call it a mistake by Arafat, that he signed it at the time being. But how to avoid that situation that is a political fact and a diplomatic fact, as far as I know it, but I might be wrong.
No, let me answer you very briefly. When the Oslo Accords took place, the regular talks, the formal talks in Washington failed. And that's why we went through back channels. And Arafat agreed to have the Oslo track, but he was ill-prepared. We didn't have people like Javier, lawyers and thinkers who were negotiating with the Israelis. And I know the two professors, mediocre professors. One of them is Ron Pundak, Allah yarhamu, we say God rest his soul, and the other one is Yair Hirschfeld. I've been with them through the Paris, so many debates all over the world. But anyway, I said, this Oslo agreement is going to legitimize Israeli settlements. Exactly 2 weeks, Wallah yarhamu, Edward Said, the third week, said the same thing from Columbia University. Yeah? Yeah. So we agreed, the intellectuals at least, agreed that this is a bad deal. However, being pragmatic, which means choosing between constraints, we had to swallow the bait, my friend. And we went along with the Oslo Agreement. Who reneged on the Oslo Agreement? In 1995, when Rabin was assassinated by an extreme Jewish settler, Netanyahu came to power in 1996, and there we started seeing the crumbling of the Oslo Accords. So it was a unilateral action on the Israeli side, because in 1999 we were supposed to have our independent state. But it didn't work, because the Zionist project is not to give 1 inch of the West Bank, because this is God-given territory for the Israelis. So when we talk about the Oslo Agreement, regardless I'm against it, but we accepted it as a leader, as leadership, and the PLO signed the agreement. And that's how we have the PNA, the Palestinian National Authority. It's the PLO signed the agreement. Now, after saying this, my friend, I wrote an article 3 years ago. A big article, I wish I have a copy to let you read it. And it was published in the Palestine-Israel Journal, which is a joint publication by Israelis and Palestinians. And I said the two-state solution is dead. It is dead. We have to look for other solutions. Either a one-state solution, either a federal government, either a confederal government, either a Benelux model, and I maybe put like 10 models of how we can get out of this quagmire and come to an agreement. But me believing that the intention of Israel is a one-state solution which is based on racism. That's my conviction. That we cannot continue talking about it. Academically, we can, what we call political flirtation. We can say whatever we want. But on the ground, Israel will never accept a one-state solution because this means the end of Zionism, where demography will reign supreme eventually. So they're not going to accept. We are not like South Africa. We are different than South Africa. Look now in South Africa. The whole situation is totally changed. But in Palestine, no. You are talking about the struggle of existence now. It's no more a national struggle. It is two ideologies at loggerheads where there is no common interest between them. And Israel has really circumvented the golden opportunity of making peace and being accepted by the entire Arab world as a legitimate country in the Middle East. So, yes, we think about other options. But today, the international community is still believing that the two-state solution is the ideal situation. But if they come and see the West Bank, it's like Swiss cheese now. I mean, what is left? There is no geographic contiguity between one place and the other. You have to go through bypass roads and this and that. So what kind of life? Where is the political independence of the Palestinians? When we don't have economic independence, we cannot claim to have political independence. So we are totally tied to Israel economically. Politically, we are totally occupied. And the entire world is still singing the same song, like Christmas carols. Every year we sing the same songs for Jesus Christ. And nothing is happening on the ground. No dramatic changes. People are being killed. And the international community is just criticizing for the sake of criticism. It's like, trying to repent a sense of guilt. That's what they're doing. But I ask you to go through soul searching and think deeply. What will be the fate of Israel if it continues with these policies another 20 years?
Yeah, that could be a follow-up from what you said before.
Yeah.
That when you look down the alley, then
Through the pipeline.
through the pipeline, you imagine that Israel is not there.
If they continue with these policies,
So what is your prophecy?
my prophecy,
Yeah. What will happen now in the coming years?
in the coming years I will see more violence from the Israeli settlers, more building of settlements, and the annexation of the West Bank. If Europe and America, they don't take, not just criticizing settlement, but take a firm stand in boycotting Israel and in putting Israel in its right corner, I think we, the Palestinians, are going to struggle for a one-state solution. We want civil rights. We want political rights. And let us see if Israel can manage to contain that through peaceful resistance. That's my answer to you. Because I'm not a violent man. I don't believe in violence. Violence breeds violence.
Sometimes you get the thought that if you Palestinians lean back and wait, you will have it all. Because it's difficult not to think that Israel is destroying itself at the moment, and that's what you're talking about also. Are there no people in the state of Israel, Jews, who are working alongside your
Yes,
case?
they are, but
I
unfortunately,
think they're having a
hard
tough
time.
yeah.
Hard time with the
But are
Israelis.
there still organizations?
During the Oslo peace process, we had many Israelis on our side. They used to call themselves Peace Now. It's an international organization in America, and there is also an organization called J Street and what have you. These are all supportive of a two-state solution. But with the advent of Netanyahu 13 years ago, and with the systematic policy of alienation, building settlements, and this and this and that, those people were marginalized by even the extreme right wing of Israelis. And that's why now they don't have any voice that could really make a change in the Knesset and what have you. Look, for the last 13 years, Israel has been controlled by right-wing fascist governments. What does that insinuate to you? That the Israeli society is also shifting towards the extreme right-wing. All right? Now, if you go to Tel Aviv and to the outskirts or what have you, there are people, Israelis, who are not aware what's going on in the West Bank. They're not aware that they are occupiers. They don't have any clue. They're living liberal life in Dizengoff, and here and there, and pubs and parties and whatever. They have no clue that they are occupiers. And they care less. They care about their pockets, nickels and dimes. So we cannot really try to depend on such people. What we are doing today is to show the world that we're not going to accept humiliation, we're not going to accept blood, killing with cold blood, and that we are there to stay and we will never revisit the Nakba of 1948. This is what we're doing. This is what I call steadfastness. And because we are steadfasting, and because we are reproducing, you know, our nuclear bomb is reproduction, as you know. The Palestinians are growing in number. We have our safety valve against them. And if they want to exterminate us, let them commit a Holocaust against us. And then let me see what Europe and the United States are going to do.
Okay. Yeah.
I leave that with a sense of guilt on you.
Yeah. Thank you, and
My pleasure.
yeah,
My pleasure.
thank you that you'll stay, and we'll continue. And but we need a break now. This is really tough.
Yes,
we are facing
we
just
need
now,
coffee.
and we need coffee, and we need air, and so on. So please also by the